Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, everything you see here is in stock and for sale, so reach out to Team Mosso at the1916company.com for purchase and pricing details of this or any watch in today's show. So we're looking at a special edition, not necessarily a limited, but a boutique exclusive that was launched in the 2024 model year when Omega, apropos of nothing, launched 6 boutique editions only available at factory stores. So this is the Seamaster Planet Ocean, 43.5 millimeters in diameter in steel. It has an extraordinary combination of taupe, bezel, and dial. Colors we'd come to associate with the Tudor Black Bay 58-925, the sterling silver model. This one in steel cops the same look and does so very effectively. It seems to slim the otherwise somewhat bulbous Planet Ocean. It does give it a wonderful refined sheen and a cool look with a strap and a stitching to match. It's big at 43.5, but the Planet Ocean has always been the more hardcore brother to the basic diver 300 meters. So big is the style, and after all, it's not so big that I couldn't wear it on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist. The case is all matte finished. Note the absolute lack of any glare, polish, or shine. That continues on the dial, which is matte finished with brushed indices, numerals, and hands to match. A really compelling watch and about as hardcore as a diver gets. If you're a saturation diver, a desk diver, or just a landlubber who loves the utilitarian look, there's a lot to love right here. The strap is made of rubber. It does come with a full clasp. We're going to take a look at the watch in the dark, and Omega Planet Oceans typically over-deliver when the lights go out. As you can see, we have a lot of lume, including all 3 hands, and a distinction between the bezel pearl and the minute hand and everything else. So you can quickly gauge your timing reference. Green hand, green dot, easy to do. Taking a quick look now at the dial in the day. It's got a ceramic insert with the liquid metal co-molding of metal and ceramic that Omega pioneered. We have a very sharp serration or knurling to this bezel, so it's easy to grip even if your hands might be wet, sweaty, or gloved. It's very positive, high-quality 120-click action, and we've got a few setting modes on this dial. First of all, of course, we've got the hacking seconds. Everyone expects that. But we've got this little time zone feature that Omega doesn't advertise well, and you can use that while keeping the watch running. Note the minute hand and seconds hand are not affected. You can actually jump the date forward or backwards depending on the direction you are traveling. Saturation divers, there you go. Helium escape valve. You know what it's for. If you're a saturation diver and you're doing that one big decompression at the end of a long-term dive, helium needs to get out of the watch. Open this thing up, and when internal pressure exceeds external by 2 to 3 bar, it will take care of you. In spite of the 600-meter water resistance rating, you can see we do actually have a display case back. Twin barrels, coaxial escapement, anti-magnetic, to the point of being amagnetic, anti-shock, 60-hour power reserve. It's the 8900. Derived from the original 8500. The 8500 was chronometer. 8900 is a master chronometer, which is a more exacting test, including durability and winding efficiency, power reserve, water resistance, and a 6-position chronometry test of the fully assembled watch. So a master chronometer above and beyond, a really cool boutique edition from Omega. So we want something more classical. Breguet first responded to the French military aviation contract Type 20 when it was issued in 1954. The name of the contract became the name of the watch, and while several made the watch at first, it was Breguet that would have the longest standing association with the Type 20 Chronograph series, and in the modern era, as a luxury brand, Breguet brought back the Type 20 in the 1990s. That's exactly what we have right here. We have the 3800 Aeronavale. There is the Transatlantique, which is equipped with a date, and then there is the Aeronavale, which is a little bit truer to the original, and it does not have a date. Now, what you're looking at here is not Fotina. It is real deal patina, a tritium fade that will die out seconds after you turn off the light. Both hands and dial are tritium, and it's rare to find one that survived this long without getting either changed. We have a big eye-style minutes register because Breguet correctly reasons that the minutes are more important than the hours to an aviator using a chronograph. We have a bidirectional rotating timing bezel. The watch is 39 millimeters. It's actually pretty short, just about 45.5, 46 lug to lug. And then, like the original Type 20, it features a flyback chronograph. This is Breguet caliber 582. It's based on the Lemania 1350, which is a very high-end cam lateral clutch chrono. Screw down crown so the water resistance is for real, and then we've got a full clasp to match. On the wrist, it wears nicely because the strap is stiff and it's not broken in. It's going to look like it's bigger than it is because I have to pull the strap down, but it fits quite comfortably. And if a wrist is as small as 14 centimeters circumference, you're going to find this fits really well. Automatic winding with a 48-hour power reserve, and again, look at that dial. White varnished hands with syringe-style extensions. That is as good as it gets. None of that is faux Tina. That is just Tina. Speaking of tonal variation, here's something different. One of the best launches of SIHH 2016 was one of the lowest profile. From Jaeger-LeCoultre, this is the Master Ultra Thin Date, so it's 40 millimeters in steel, but it's only 45.5 lug to lug and 7.8 millimeters thick, so it does live up to its billing as ultra thin. On the wrist, super compact, super flat. You can see how well it wears on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist and has that bewitching dial that's sometimes described as champagne, but I don't really think that's appropriate. This is a little bit more intense. Champagne, I think of as sort of a cross between silver and gold. This is more like a cross between gold and brown, or what Patek Philippe would call honey brown. It's a really compelling look, and with the satin finish of the dial, the half-frosted dauphines and the faceted dart-style indices, an awesome-looking machine. On the back, JLC manufactured caliber 899, free-sprung 4 Hertz, 43-hour power reserve, hacking with a quick-set date, fire-blued screws. Look at the construction of the case. You see these screws under the lugs? They actually thread into the bezel, enabling this watch to be as thin as it is. You can even see that the stem tube assembly has been shrunken around the stem itself. The watch is awesome, and actually it features a cool clasp. There's a push-button release for the clasp, because JLC realized what Patek has not yet figured out, which is that if you use pull-tab spring bars that allow you to pull the strap off the case without a tools, it doesn't help if the buckle is stuck on the strap. If you want to swap straps, you need a quick-release buckle as well as a quick release on the lug end. Really great piece. This is what JLC is all about, and frankly, other than the decoration, which is good but not Holy Trinity, this really doesn't give up anything aesthetically or technically to the likes of Patek, Audemars, and Vacheron. Here's something that probably wasn't on your radar until it popped up on this show, but the Arnold & Son TEC Tourbillon with a chronograph. This is a 250-piece limited edition in, wait for it, palladium. That's right, PD 950, an alloy rarely seen on any watch in any era. We have this incredible Flinke dial with a combination of a guilloche pattern and then lacquer on top. You could see that the hands are a hybrid of syringe and broadsword and that they're half satinated to better contrast with the black dial base. We have this beautiful dial-side visible tourbillon. It is a 1-minute tourbillon, and you can see that everything has been mirror finished and mirror beveled with satination on the top of the bridge and a fan-style guilloche beneath that. Turn it all over. We have a manufacturer 8305 movement. Look at the engraving and the beveling on this rotor. This rotor has engraving, beveling, media blast, satination, and then we've got Côte de Soleil on the movement itself, which is automatic winding with a lovely column wheel chronograph action and a 55-hour power reserve. This is Autologerie finish from a company that typically makes under 1,000 watches a year. Arnold & Son is the brand name of the manufacturer La Panerai, which does lots of work for many different brands, but it makes Arnold & Son and Angelus as its house brands. You could see that this case features welded lug construction and double finish, satin and polish. Look how sharply that case has been welded and then hand finished against the lug profile. You see, you weld the lug in, and then you use a file to remove the gathered material from the weld to create that super sharp break. The watch is large, make no mistake, at 44, but it's 52.4 lug to lug, so it is viable. If your wrist is fairly large, I'm going to say 17 centimeters circumference, this could be a really great match. This is an awesome combination of automatic winding, a chronograph, and a tourbillon in a case material you will never see. I mean, palladium watches, I see maybe 5 or 6 of them a year, and I see 1,000 to 2,000 watches a year. A really cool piece from a company that's backed by Citizen Watch money, and thus will always be around to provide parts and service. An exotic watch with indie cool without being indie risky. Here's something odd, but it was easily the coolest Panerai that came out in 2018. This is the Radiomir 1940 Art Deco, the PAM 791, part of a pair of clock-inspired Panerai Radiomir 1940 models that came out during the year 2018. Now, 500 of these were made, so it's a limited edition and a special series. It's got a dial inspired by a pendulum clock and a genuine plexiglass crystal. Radiomir 1940 case, so it's got the 47mm case profile with the stronger lugs than the welded lug profile. The welded-on wire lug would be like a traditional Radiomir. This is a Radiomir 1940 because of those lugs. We have a screw-down crown. The watch is water-resistant to 100 meters. We have this very minimally tanned strap. On the reverse side, we have the second-generation caliber 3000, which is a bit more elaborate in its use of finger bridges. Still twin barrels, still 3-day power reserve, and still has the time zone function. Let's move over to the light, get a little bit more light here. This lovely cream-colored dial has a set of hands unlike anything seen on any other Panerai reference, save its sister reference, the 790. So this is the 791. We have that time zone function that allows me to move the hour hand independently as I travel. And this is one of the good ones. You can see the strap held to the case using screws and bars here. On the wrist, as with most Panerai watches in the full-size range, it's large, but it's not too large. Big, even too big, is kind of the look here. So I think this wears just fine on my wrist. If I were looking for a Panerai and I don't want one that's generic. And we're back. As often happens, I outlasted my equipment. The battery died. But, like I said, the knock against Rolex and Panerai is often that if you've seen one, you've seen them all. Whereas if you've seen this, you've only seen this. Nothing else in Panerai's catalog, past or present, even comes close to this aesthetic. And it's one of the only Panerai watches ever made in the modern era that has no lume of any kind. It's aesthetically distinct. It is fun. It is I would say a departure from their ordinarily somewhat pretentious tactical military, spec war type of marketing drive. This is something that's beautiful, evocative, and historically driven with no Walter Mitty factor. You're not pretending to be a frogman when you wear this. You're just showing that you've got tastes for something fine, a little bit different, and a little bit eccentric. And that pretty much describes me as well. But you've got a movement that's sized to suit and actually looks pretty cool. So this is a watch that has everything going on from Panerai's catalog. If you want one that is truly the one and only, even the black dial 790 doesn't look this cool. This is the Radiomir 1940 Art Deco. Let's go pre-Art Deco. Let's go back to the dawn of Cartier wristwatch making. So in 1917, at the height of the Great War, Louis Cartier created the tank, presumably drawn from the profile of the then new engine of destruction. The tank watch spawned the tank Cintree in 1921. The tank curved. Well, for 2017, Cartier celebrated 1 century of the tank watch by reissuing a tank Cintree in the form you see here. 100 pieces, platinum, fully open wrought. So this is a 100-piece edition in platinum. It's about 46.2 from end to end. It's 23 across, and I measure it at 7.8 millimeters thick. Now you can see, because of the design of the movement, which is a manufacturer caliber, there is an arc from the barrel to the balance, so bevel gears are implied. A little bit like Eva Loiba's Ari. And you can see on the reverse side, likewise, the camber and curvature of this Cartier manufacture movement. Like all Cartier manufacture movements, this movement in this watch built in their fully integrated factory in La Chaux de Fonds. This is the 9917MC, 60 hours of manual wind power reserve, finished to a standard and decorated to a degree of detail that you will not find on other Cartier watches. You have a sapphire cabochon. You have this case that's unusual in its construction, in that lateral screws actually help to hold it together. And this watch had an original retail price in 2017 of $80,000. So it is at a level of elite and exclusive that most Cartier watches are not. Most Cartier watches take after Le Mousse de Cartier from the 1970s and 80s. Cartier watches that are mass market luxury. This is Cartier for a true pasha. This is Cartier as Cartier would have been marketed for most of its existence, not as luxury to the masses, but as a indulgence for the very few. You can see the degree of detailing in that the open barrel adds a different element of style to this watch, which bears its entire movement on its dial side. Think of it as a 41 or 42 millimeter round watch, because that's how big it wears. You might look at 23 millimeters on our website and think, oh, that's a lady's watch. No way. Look at the size of it. I could barely wear it. This is a watch that has a lot of personality, and in full platinum, as a 100-piece edition, very few people will have the pleasure. This very well could have been the final watch in the show, as I normally save the best for last, but there's something that is utterly surpassing even by the standards of this tank Cintree. Vacheron Constantin Malte Tourbillon Skelette, featuring the company's first manufactured caliber, the 1790, but this is the 1790 SQ, fully skeletonized and engraved. Look at that intermediate wheel. Look at the intermediate wheel that drives the motion work, the hands. That intermediate wheel right there, it's sort of champagne colored. Notice that it has been internally beveled. We have a complication here. This watch features a power reserve indicator, 45-hour manual wind power reserve, and it has a date, and it has a 1-minute tourbillon. Look at that mirror-finished tourbillon cage. Look at how the hollows have been internally beveled, and each one featuring 2 interior angles executed on steel. 2.5 hertz beat rate, nice and slow, 18,000 vibrations per hour, a 1-minute tourbillon with an overcoil hairspring. The case, 36 millimeters wide, and then 47.7 from lug to lug. The Malte Tourbillon originally came out in the year 2000, and it was launched with this caliber 1790. Vacheron bought manufacturer Haute de Gamme in 1998, a company out of the Vallée du Jeu that focused on the top of the market, including tourbillon regulators. And so, supercharged by that acquisition, Vacheron was able to depart from the pattern of its first quarter millennium and become a fully integrated manufacturer, building movements now in-house. And you could see the result. Absolutely extravagant. Take a look at this. We have interior angles and mirror bevels, but look at all of this engraving on components so thin and gossamer, you would imagine they would fold like tinfoil, but each one engraved. Look at the characters. Vacheron Constantin Genève, all freehand engraved with no margin for error. None, lest the component be scrapped. You can also see the underside of the tourbillon and the fact that the movement is perfectly sized and shaped for this case, a sign of Vacheron moving from high-end établissage to true manufacturer watchmaking. When a movement like this goes back to the factory, not only do the most qualified and advanced watchmakers get pulled aside for it, but this kind of movement with skeletonized bridges and plates, every part will be cleaned by hand due to the delicacy of the operation. A watch that's as exclusive and as special as they get. This was one of the very final examples ever sold, as it was retailed in 2023 and thus retains factory warranty for quite a few years. So if you want one, this is the one. One little disclosure, the watch has an unusual personalization on the reverse side that's easy to miss, but you can see that there's a very fine engraving on the case back sapphire. So just keep that in mind. That's the only non-standard aspect of the watch. If it goes back for service, you could always have that sapphire replaced. A sapphire costs 30 francs. I just want to make sure you know exactly what we've got here. What we have is a rare opportunity to own a Vacheron that puts all of the boutique chic independence back in the case. This thing proves that the Holy Trinity has a lot of fight left in it. Indies, one and all, you've been warned. Final highlight, take a look at the bridge for the tourbillon. Look how it's been completely mirror finished and rounded all the way around, Grubel Forsey style. Reach out to Team Mosso at the 1916company.com for purchase pricing details of this or any watch in today's show.